Changing Times Media, exploring new ideas that have the power to change the world.
So the first step in weight release is not to focus on weight, but to just pay attention without judging to how you are currently eating at the moment. And one of the best ways to do that is to slow everything down. So you put the food on your plate in slow motion, you feel the fork in your hand, you slowly move a piece of food to your mouth, you smell it first, you hold it in your mouth for 20 seconds, and you watch how the different flavors change. And what you'll find is that when you do that, your brain begins to register for the first time whether it needs that food or not. So most of the time, we gobble our memories and we gobble our food way too fast, and we don't give our brain time to find out if we even needed that food on a bodily level. So cool thing is when you mindfully eat, when you actually meditate on your food, when you're actually praying over each bite of food that you have, it comes alive. It opens up whole new realms of experience, and this is mind-blowing.
No, it's interesting because with my weight release clients, we talk about mealtime affirmations, so setting intention going into the meal to nourish our body, again, to relate to the food in a particular way. And then we talk about breathing between bites. We talk about this sort of way of being in relationship with the food. The piece that you offer, which I really like, is the actual slowing down and tasting the food, holding it in your mouth, examining the textures and the qualities. And it's interesting, too, because one of the things I do with intention is intention isn't directed towards an outward result. It's directed towards a quality of experience. And that really relates to eating intentionally, means that our intention is to experience the qualities in the food that we find appealing, that what really fuels us, And I even say it to people in terms of creating the imperative. So much of our behavior, we're feeding ourselves some empty calories. What really feeds us?
I want you to think of a movie that's one of my favorite movies, and the first one to take mindful eating to the most enlightening level possible. Was when Harry met Sally.
I thought you were going to say that. That's funny.
And she sits there, and she picks up her sandwich, and she bites into it, and she's going, She was showing, basically, what one can do if you really immerse yourself in a bite of food, and of course somebody else on the other restaurant says, I want to have what she's having.
That's right.
So if you really take that amount of time and you immerse yourself that fully into a bite of food, it's going to be better than sex.
Oh man, that's the advertisement right there for the process. No, listen, it's not. I agree with you that the opportunity to experience so many things, and you said this earlier, it's not just food. It's when we go walking to our car that we interact with other people with a sense of mindfulness, a sense of consciousness, and intent. What's the quality of experience we're going for in the relationship? For example, my intention is to connect with you, so I listen in a different way, right? I interact in a different way because I'm being directed, or I'm holding in my consciousness this intent, which is to connect.
But everything that we are doing right now is on the highest level of intellectuality. We're stimulating our frontal lobes. We're stimulating our consciousness. And consciousness on a neurological level leaves something out. It has no feelings to it. It has no sensation. That's happening back in the limbic parts of the brain. So when you slow down, if I interfere with our speech, if I even speak this slowly, you'll begin to hear different aspects of the tone of my voice. You'll hear the vibration of this. You'll start having a sensory sense of my words, and you'll say, oh my goodness, it's not about all that logic and reason and mental noise. There's an experience underlying our conversation. And it's that experience that makes the real connection between you and me, not just our words. And the same thing happens when we're eating food. Most of the time we're eating, our thoughts are somewhere else, or we're thinking about what we're eating based upon all these old ideas, and we have left out the actual experience, the sensation of eating itself. And when we bring that into the picture, it stimulates the reward centers of our brain. And when we eat mindfully, it's as good as taking a drug, it's as good as sex, it's as good as pleasure, it's as good as relaxation. It feels wonderful. Even a positive affirmation, a single one, is enough to begin that stimulating process. And if we stimulate the reward part of the brain enough, we won't need the food in order to feel satisfied.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And I totally get where there's so many opportunities in our lives to create fulfillment and to slow down and actually look at not just the food, but a lot of the choices we make unconsciously and ask ourselves, is this really serving me? I mentioned earlier the idea of programming, that so many of us are programmed in a particular way. We bought into ideas about ourselves, about the world around us, and it's almost like we're on autopilot. And to interrupt that and make a conscious choice, to unplug from what's not serving us, make a conscious choice to plug into what is serving us. That's a different orientation.
Yes, to be conscious, to be mindful, to be fully alive. Mind fully alive.
That's good for the brain.
Yes.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. All right, Mark, I want to talk about, because I brought it up earlier, and we have to touch upon this. The idea that this is multi-generational. And actually there was a historic moment back in the 40s where I want to say it was Lyndon B. Johnson had a campaign about eating less. And through politics and a distorted agenda, it got bent around, and we're still sort of riding that.
It's kind of weird. The government was originally going to come out with the notion that eating less food is good for you. We now know, actually, that even being on a very restricted caloric diet is extraordinarily healthy and wonderful for the brain. It actually slows down the aging process of the brain to be on a very low-calorie diet. But what happened is that the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, was going to go along with this, and the FTC came in and said, wait a minute, you're telling people to eat less food. You're telling people to stop buying and eating cows. You're telling people to stop buying and eating sugar. You're going to destroy the economy of the United States. And the FTC won out. And so they took the logo that was going to be Eat Less and turned it into Eat More. And what it was, eat more lean meat, eat more low-calorie food. And this is something that you can now market. You can now make lean meat cows. So you increase business, but the real message is that you're teaching people to eat more. And it's very interesting because that's about the time when weight started to become a serious problem and it really started escalating. So the message is always eat more healthy food, not eat less food in general.
Yeah, no, it's really again, it's one of those things where if we look at the obesity crisis and we look underneath all the rhetoric and all the finger pointing, we can see that this is something that's been building for a very long time. It isn't a crisis that just occurred overnight. It's been going on over decades, and it's multi-generational. So I feel as if, from a consciousness perspective, this is the moment in time where the individual needs to take their power back. That's my sense, and really start to recognize what do they want? What's the quality of experience they want for their lives? Because this ain't it.
We don't realize how much power we've given over to the food industry.
Big time.
We've become brand name associated. You know, we have to have our Nabisco cookie. We have to have our iPhone.
Oh, but it's also the idea that the industry has hijacked our taste buds. We want fat, sugar, and salt because, again, neurochemically, that's what gets the biggest bang for our buck, right?
I don't blame the food industry. They simply figured out what turns on the brain.
That's right.
And so seeing a brightly colored package with the words new, improved, vitamin enriched, even if none of that is true, because unfortunately the moment you take a whole food and you
process
it,
right.
and then you can't, when you put back in the when you put back in all the vitamins and nutrients, your body can't really absorb them very well at all. It has to come from the whole foods. But the flavors, they found out, turn on the brain. We get addicted to those high fat, high sugar, high salt elements because they don't exist in nature. So our old primitive brain goes, this is something unique, this is something special, this is something we couldn't find in the past, and that reptilian brain doesn't know that we have too much of it going on now.
Yeah, and the food industry term is hyper palatable. I intend to have David Kessler on this show. David Kessler, for those of you who don't know, wrote the book The End of Overeating.
Wonderful man.
Yeah, and he is the Food and Drug Administration chief who brought down big tobacco, who's really looking at the food industry from the standpoint of helping the consumer make better choices. Before we leave today, Mark, I want to be sure to give folks your information so they can find you. It's www.markrobertwaldman, WALDMAN.com. And I also want to really recommend your book. It's one of my favorite books, and it's How God Changes the Brain. This is a book that Mark wrote with Andrew Newberg, Dr. Andrew Newberg, based on the science that the two of you have worked out for a very long time. This isn't something you just stumbled upon. This is years and years of committed scientific research to really recognize what's going on neurologically, neurochemically, what's happening up there, as it were, that's really at the root of so much of the behaviors, not just around food, but around other aspects of our lives that we don't find fulfilling.
It's the definitive book on how you can actually do very simple practices and techniques to alter the structure and function of your brain.
Brilliant. And I want to say this because we are going to do a webinar together.
Yes.
My weight release process and his mindful eating and the neuroscience behind so much of this are going to come together. So if you are interested in that, stay tuned. You can always get on the mailing list, either contacting Mark on his website or going to servicetoself.com, that's my site, and just sign up there for the newsletter, and we will be sure to let you know when that's coming out. I'm thrilled. Mark, thank you so much. I mean, you got to come back again because there's so much to talk about, but we will keep moving forward because I think that what you're doing is critical. People need to understand what's really going on and stop telling the old story that's not accurate about themselves and about their weight.
Well, do me one favor.
Of course.
This is now set up as a podcast, so you can go to your website for this. There's so much information that we've consolidated into this short, brief hour.
I agree.
I'd like you to listen to it again, and I invite you to send it to your friends and get feedback from them. Some of these ideas are so astonishingly different that it's a wonderful thing just to begin a dialogue around. When we start to think about mindful eating, we're going to change the planet just a little bit.
I agree.
Okay, so that's our show for today. Go to freemanmichaelsshow.com and you can download this as a podcast and send it to your friends. Tell everybody about it. Thanks for joining us today. We'll be back tomorrow.